Hello and welcome to a different episode of the Untold Stories podcast with me, Cameron. Before I get into what I will be talking about today, let me introduce my two guests that I have. First guest is from a podcast called The Main Event. Dan, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Cameron. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. My second guest is a regular guest on the Main Event podcast, but I've decided to nab him over today. Nathan, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Cheers for having us on.
No problem. So today's podcast is all about the Premier League's relegation battle, the run-in, and how we all see it ending. We'll mostly be talking about Newcastle United, all the problems that they've been going through over the last 5 years, I would say, since they got promoted, and how and if they can stay in the league. So Newcastle sits 17th currently in the Premier League, 2 points above Fulham and 18th, but they do have a game in hand. The first question is, where has it went wrong since getting promoted in 2017, and how can the club fix it? Dan?
It's not gone wrong immediately. We got promoted with an okay side. We had Rafa Benitez, who knew how to extract every ounce of talent from those players. So we actually had a fairly okay start. I think some of the data is a bit skewed when you hear people talk about Steve Bruce's first 10 games or whatever it is compared to Rafa's. The first 2 seasons back in the league, we had a terrible start of the league in terms of the fixtures, very similar to the fixtures that we have coming up now, where it seems to be all or nothing really with Newcastle fixtures. We get a run of great fixtures and a run of god awful. They never seem to just be dotted around quite nicely. So it started off what people perceived to be bad, but that was just an unnuanced view. It actually went all right, and we had 2 mid-table finishes. We're never really in any danger of going down. We were never in any danger of challenging any of the teams above us. It was middle of the road, stale, stagnant. We get Steve Bruce in after Rafa leaves. My opinion on Rafa leaving is I don't really care. He wanted to go. He wasn't backed really in the transfer market once we were promoted. And that is obviously something that we can talk about later on, if you like, Cameron, in terms of Mike Ashley's transfer policies.
Yeah.
But Steve Bruce had a good start. Last year, I was someone that gives Steve Bruce a chance. It's pointless having a manager come in, whether you think he's good or bad, and giving him loads of stick, getting on his back. This is our team. We need to support him. And he exceeded our expectations last year. And I think looking at it, what happened was, because he still had a group of players that had been so well structured, there was a regime there from Rafa who was borderline totalitarian, that those players still had that identity, but he just loosened them up a bit. So he actually played some okay football at times, got that 1-0 win at home to Man United, Matty Longstaff, that was just a dream day for every possible reason. And it all looked okay, but obviously the further and further away we've gotten from Rafa's organised structure and game plan, and the more that we go back to Steve Bruce's 90s style tactics, obviously the more the wheels have came off. And ultimately, a short answer than the one I've given is incredibly poor decisions in the transfer market and incredibly poor decisions in recruitment of the managerial position is what's caused this complete implosion.
Yeah, I get where you come from, but I've mentioned to you, both of you, in the group chat that we have about Steve Bruce when he first came in, and how he's a lot like Alan Pardew, and say that he has a really good start, really good, first like 8 months or something, first season, to get the fans on board, because he did the same at Sunderland. He had a really good start where we got our highest position since Peter Reid. The team we had, and then in second, third season, he just chucks it all in and goes, right, this is mine now. So do you think, I mean, I'll move on to Nathan's answer after I've said this, but is there a part of it where he's saw what Rafa's done, 10th position in the Premier League, I can do that, I'll just take his tactics because I know he did play the same formation.
Mhm.
I'll just take his tactics and see how long it works for. Nathan,
I do think he's went with that. I think he's went with the whole, like, the squad was so regimed into these tactics. And like Dan said, it was working for the first season. But then when you get 18 months into a job and the first words out your mouth are, the gloves are off, it's my way now.
mm,
Whose way were you doing it since you walked in here? Because clearly you're meant to be the man in charge, not whoever else was in charge, apparently. And it seems like since he said that statement, which was probably around Christmas, we've won 2 games out of 20. So when the gloves came off and it went Bruce's way, look at our form now. And I do agree with everything Dan said. I think it's from the top down. It's not just Bruce. And, I'll say, we all know in the group chat, I'm very vocal that Bruce shouldn't be anywhere near this club. He shouldn't be
anywhere near the Premier League, Nathan.
Exactly.
He shouldn't be anywhere near football. We see coaches in the FA Cup coaching these teams into playing a certain brand of football where they can not be embarrassed by Premier League teams.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
You look at like
outside
San
of Notts
Marino,
County
England
versus Man City, but Steve Bruce could not manage a League Two team.
No. You look at him now and you just think, you drilling into these players. What is it? I mean, transfers, yes, questionable, but he brought in some good players this summer, like in the last window. Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser. I mean, we've all had opinions on Ryan Fraser. What obviously me and Dan thought he was a brilliant signing at first. Looking at him now, it's like, is he disinterested because of relegation? Is he played out of position? Which it seems like quite a few times he has been. It seems like, I mean, I think you mentioned it was Cam, like his point on ex-player saying Bruce's tactic is bring 4 forwards on at the end, near the end of the game, and just hope someone gets a goal.
Yeah.
And you need more, like, you need to actually have tactics in today's world. It's not the 90s anymore where it's just, let's hope we do something. And he's going the wrong way about everything. Like, I think Bruce is very lucky that the stadium's empty. Very lucky.
That's a point that I was going to bring up. Do you think having the no fans in the ground has like postponed him getting the stick he's had, or do you think it's fast forwarded it?
I think it's postponed it. I think he's tried to quash as much of it as he can. If you look in the media, like, it's always fans are keyboard warriors, fans are histrionics. It's always something, and it's always like he banned the written media because they questioned him about something. They questioned him about his tactics or his managerial style, and he banned all written press. He said that they're the reason the club are doing badly. The fans also are down that reason, and he'll never take criticism. And I've noticed that with Steve Bruce. Whenever he's criticised, he goes straight on the defensive, but in a very aggressive way. And I think that's where the whole Matt Ritchie thing came from. Ritchie wanted that out of him, and Ritchie called him a coward. The next day, he went, "I'm not speaking to that coward." And Bruce has come flying out of the dressing room and squared up to him. Like, grow up and talk to your player. He wanted to talk to you that night, and ask why you singled him out in the middle of a press conference.
Yeah,
I think at times we forget that this is a professional sport.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't really like how a lot of American sports are run, and I love the way that football is, that it's the sport for the people. But one thing that I think we can sort of take from it is just how professional every team at the top level of American sports takes it.
Mm-hmm.
Rightly so, the money that's involved. Whereas Steve Bruce, I get the impression that he just thinks it's the 90s where you can have however many days off, you can go drinking after the game, you can do this, you can do that, you can speak however you like. He doesn't seem to have a grasp on the fact that this is a multi-billion-pound industry, that it's the most televised sport in the entire world, and we are in the most televised league in the entire world. And that he has to act like this is a normal job. It can't just be, oh, well, this is football and this happens.
Mm.
No, it's a job.
Yeah.
You can't be behaving this way.
And to be fair, this season, I think relegation could kill a few clubs in all divisions, just purely down to finances after COVID. So him saying, "Oh, the gloves are off now, 20 games." And the possibility is, since then you've went, obviously, as Nathan said, you just went down. I'm sure at one point you had a 10-point gap over relegation.
We did.
Yes, we did.
We did.
So he went. He's just went downhill, and then he goes. As Dan said, you got to treat it as a normal job. If you're doing badly, you're not going to be in that job anymore. So as you've mentioned, you've got your opinions, especially Nathan.
I've got strong opinions.
So he's got to think of the club as a whole, like, you know, the canteen staff. If they go down, probably just won't be there next season. But it's going to be budget cuts on a whole different level because of COVID. So I think he's got to think, oh, my players, the multi-millionaires, they can do what they want. You know, Joe Willock's not bothered if we go down. He's on loan from Arsenal. He'll go back to his 50 grand a week at Arsenal, living the high life, getting mid-table. But he's got to think of the bigger picture. And I think Mike Ashley's got to think of the bigger picture, because from what I've read before this, and we are moving on to Mike Ashley now, from what I've read before this, Mike Ashley had quite a positive start at Newcastle, as I mean, many owners do. But he was in the stands, he was in the pubs. I remember reading something that Sunderland banned him from wearing the Newcastle shirt in the corporate box. So he went and stood in the stand in the away end. So Mike Ashley, where do you think that tipping point was where fans are like, well, maybe this guy isn't all he's meant to be? Because from what I've seen and from what I remember, I was quite young at the time, when Kevin Keegan left, is when the fans sort of went, whoa, what, like, is this guy really, what is he going to do what he's really saying?
It was the bringing in of Dennis Wise. He brought in Dennis Wise while Keegan was there. And it was like, Keegan didn't want him there at all. Keegan wasn't really told about him being there. And then these signings started coming out of nowhere. Like, I think there was someone called Ignacio Gonzalez or something like that. Cisco came in. What a player he was. Even Gutierrez and players like that, like, they were getting, it was just, all right, these are coming in, you'll deal with them. And Keegan was like, no, it's not like that. I say who plays for my team. And I think that was when Ashley went, right, say that. And it was the treatment, like, it was, I think Keegan even won in court against Ashley in regards to it, unfair dismissal or something like that. But that was where Ashley lost the fans, because before that, like you said, he was, I remember being in the game where he was in a few stands nearby and he was buying drinks for the whole stand. And it was like, all right, this bloke could actually be all right. Like, you know, he's trying to be one of the fans. He was standing in the stands with a shirt with King Kev on the back. And it was like, you're living up, are you trying to live up to something? Or you're trying to make fans think you're this nice man? Or is this actually who you are? Because obviously everyone knows it's not untold that Mike Ashley's a good drinker. I mean,
well, I remember the exact moment. I remember the exact single moment where Newcastle fans had their initial doubt. And I might get the game wrong. I think it was away to Arsenal, but it was away somewhere. And you're right, he was in the stands, and it was on Match of the Day, this image. And it was Mike Ashley necking a pint.
Yeah.
In the away.
It's a non-alcoholic pint.
Aye.
Whatever it was. And we just thought, wait there a minute. Like, we get it. We know what you're trying to do here, but you run this football club. You are from London. Just stop being so earnest. Remember, it is a job. And then because of how we were with him, he then decided to retreat to the boardroom in his suit, doesn't do anything, doesn't speak. It's sort of held it against the Newcastle fans ever since that moment. But ultimately, when your owner is live on, well, not live, but yeah, actually, I can't remember if the game was shown live. I think it might have just been from all the Match of the Day footage. Necking a pint. You're just thinking, right, you're now putting this club in a bit of a negative image, especially when you're not allowed to be drinking alcohol. And if it's non-alcoholic, then fair enough, but why are you necking a non-alcoholic drink to the rapturous applause of drunk Geordies? It doesn't make any sense. And then you're right, Nathan, when he brought in Dennis Wise and Lambias, rejecting moves like 4 million for Luka Modric because he's never going to make it as a player. Selling James Milner. I mean, telling Kevin Keegan you aren't going to make it as a footballer because you're too small. When in Kevin Keegan's book, he writes about how he moved from Yorkshire because they kept on telling him he was too small. Won a Ballon d'Or, but never mind. Like, what's going on? These people clearly didn't know anything about Kevin Keegan because they would have known not to do that anyway. They clearly didn't know anything about football to be rejecting some of the players that were rejected. We had the opportunity to sign Cristiano Ronaldo and signed Hugo Vion. I remember that, but I think that was before Mike. That was
Freddie Shepherd. I think Schweinsteiger. Well, nearly signed Bastian Schweinsteiger under Ashley as well. And then that one, they said something about it as well.
No, it was we sold James Milner. I remember this. We sold James Milner. Keegan kicked off, and then Mike Ashley went, "Oh, don't worry, we're signing Bastian Schweinsteiger." And Keegan went, "Oh, well, all right then." It never happened, and then it came out that we never put a bid in. We never even. Apparently, we ran when we'd like to pay 30 million for Schweinsteiger, and they just laughed down the phone and said no, and then that was it. That was the discussion.
That was with interest.
30 million back then was a big bid as well.
Oh yeah.
But 30 million was big, but they still wanted like 50, 60. It wasn't.
Yeah.
30 million wasn't, like, you're right, Cameron. It's big, but it's not. It's not enough.
Like $100 million player.
Like he wasn't that, but I'd say if 30 million's big, they wanted 50 million. You might go, "Oh, what's 20 million?" But obviously, if 30 million's big, then 20 million's big as well. So, like, they wanted nearly double the amount. And let's be honest, Bastian Schweinsteiger at that age was 100% worth that money.
Fully.
With how good he was, how well he was playing internationally for Germany at the time. He was a right-sided midfielder then. And the fact that he goes on to win absolutely everything you can win in football, I think, other than maybe the European Championships.
The Premier League.
I mean, he was, by the time he moved to the Premier League, his legs had gone. He wasn't the same player then at all.
No.
I would never judge him on how he played for Man United. I still think he has the most underrated performance in a World Cup final ever. He deserved to get man of the match against Argentina. It was absolutely unbelievable. I think Toni Kroos ended up getting it, but Schweinsteiger was outrageously good in that game. Anyway, we digress. Yeah, it was just a case of a lot of the transfers. We end up sacking Keegan, and we'll have the manager merry-go-round of that season. We end up going down, and it's just absolute heartbreak.
Yeah, I remember actually being crushed because it was the first time we went down. And I remember being in a bar watching it, and I just felt like that's it. Like, you just obviously not rubbing it in or anything, but Cam, you probably know the feeling a bit more than we do. But it's that, like, well, that's it. We're not that club we were. That club that we loved is gone, and it's been like that ever since.
The first time was like proper soul destroying.
Yeah.
But I always felt that we would come straight back up. And when we got promoted again, and we had that good season under Houghton, then Pardew, and then we got the fifth under Pardew. Whether Pardew was good or not, I thought, you know what, we've turned the corner. It was a blip, and we've learned a lesson. Look at the signs that we've made from the selling of Andy Carroll. This is going well. And it was just all downhill. And to be fair, I want to be fair. The second relegation, if there's any blame on Mike Ashley, it's on his managerial appointment of Steve McLaren, not his funds, because we did excellent business from selling Andy Carroll for 35 million, and then all the players that we bought with that money. There weren't very many flops in that group of players. And then even when we went down, look at the 4 players we signed that season we went down. Gini Wijnaldum. So, but Gini Wijnaldum, Champions League, Premier League winner now, one of the best midfielders in the world. Barcelona have been wanting for 2 years.
Yep.
We bought Chancellor Mbemba, who was playing centre-back every week for FC Porto, who have been a revelation in the Champions League this year, and they're one of the best defences in the Champions League. We bought Florent Thauvin, who won French Player of the Year, a World Cup, and it wasn't just, you know, like Thierry Henry won a World Cup where he never played. Thauvin played a lot of those games in the World Cup and was an integral player.
The problem was with him, he never wanted to join with.
But I think the problem was he was a bit lightweight at the time, but we never really gave him a chance. The fans have got to take blame because we judged him straight away. He was weak, and then we didn't really support him.
Yeah.
And then Alexander Mitrovic, who was arguably out of the 4 the best performer, but he had his temper problems, and Mitrovic is a championship striker. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So fair enough. But we still paid the money for those players. I thought that recruitment was okay. Like, they've proved that they are good players, but hiring Steve McLaren to manage those players. And even within that team, we had Sissoko, who, I don't like him, but he's played in the Champions League final, finished second with Spurs or something like that. He was Spurs' best player when they got the Champions League final. We had other players in that team that could perform, and we were just poorly managed by McLaren. But Ashley's got to take the blame for hiring McLaren. But as far as the investment goes, I thought for those years, we were okay. Since we came back up this time, there has been nothing. I mean, Joelinton for 40 million is just a joke, an absolute joke, especially when you consider how much money we've gained from transfers. We've sold Jose Perez for God knows how much. I mean, that's borderline evened out.
35 mil.
There you go. That's even out Joelinton. We've obviously sold other players along the way as well. I mean, we sold Wijnaldum and Sissoko for a combined 65 million or something like that.
Exactly.
But every year we've been in the league since being promoted, we have earned £100 million or whatever it is just from TV revenue. That is the club's money, and the club sees none of it because it's all about sports washing for Mike Ashley. I know that a lot of people are saying, all the Saudis want to do is sports wash to improve the reputation and image of the Middle East because of human rights issues. And Mike Ashley's just doing the same on a smaller scale for Sports Direct. It's free advertising for him.
Yeah. He
gets to vindicate the fact that he's got these barbaric 0-hour contracts and his working conditions where he makes like people that are 8.5 months pregnant work if they want to get paid. He just wants to take that money and buy the high street with it. He's no longer concerned with the club.
See, this was always my point. Like, I think when you look at Mike Ashley and you look at the kind of man he is, like Cameron, I think you said to me just before we started this, he's a very good businessman.
Yeah.
But in the retail, yes, but I think it's part of his ego. Like, he wants his ego stroked. He wants to be the hero of retail, bring back all these shops that he can save. And I think that's what it is. But like, if you remember his court case, do you remember the court case with Sports Direct? They turned up at court in Parliament, and they go, you need to empty your pockets. And he empties his pockets like these 50 quid notes, about £1,000 and 50 quid notes, and went, I've just been to the casino. It just kind of showed the man he is. Like, he's just a gambling man who thinks that the seriousness of why he was in court was a joke.
And Nathan, I don't want to name too many names in this for potential legal reasons.
Yeah.
But there is a casino, and this isn't secondhand information. I want everyone to know this isn't like a friend of a friend told me. Anyone that knows me knows that I used to work in a casino in Mayfair. So this is sort of a first-hand story that in one casino in Mayfair, Mike Ashley went in once, laid down £1 million deposit, and hasn't been back since. And there is still £1 million in that account.
Wow.
And the thing is, he might not even know it's there. He might be like, "What?" If someone told them, but they can't touch the money. Obviously, it's his money, and it doesn't expire. So he's just got casually £1 million in a betting account in a casino in Mayfair.
Wow.
I mean, if you talk about, Mike Ashley with the investment side of stuff into Newcastle, you could liken it to Ellis Short at Sunderland, how it just got to a certain time, 2 or 3 seasons before he left. I would say the second last season in the Premier League was when he started to give up, moving into the last season, and he just went, what's the point in me putting all this money into the club if it's just getting progressively worse and worse every year? So he said he basically just cut the ties and went, I'm not giving you any money. And I think to stay in the Premier League, well, we didn't stay in the Premier League, but the relegation season and the Championship season combined, he's spent 20 million over 2 seasons. And then we signed 12 players into the Championship for 1.2 million. So do you think Ashley's getting to that point of going, well, why am I putting my money in if I'm not getting a result?
I don't know. I think if you look at the January window, if we go for the January window, and I think even the summer window, Mike Ashley didn't expect to be spending money, especially the summer one, because obviously he thought the takeover is going to be done. He's going to be out of this club. But January, obviously, that's when the court stuff started kicking up and all this. And, he's going down the arbitration route. And I think he was like, why am I going to put money into a club that I'm going to get rid of when I'm not going to get this money back? Because the only deal we done was a loan deal for Joe Willock, when everyone knows we needed a lot more than that in that window. Apparently, obviously there was rumours that we went for Milik, and he said the club just didn't have the ambition. I mean, that says it all about our club. I mean, you look at it from top to bottom with that club, with our club, and the training ground is probably the standard of a League Two team. You have players having their cryo chamber, Sunderland at least had a cryo chamber, but you look at Newcastle, theirs is in an actual bin, or in a paddling pool. There was the famous photo of the players sitting in a paddling pool, or sitting in wheelie bins, and it's like, you're meant to be a Premier League club. Bournemouth, when they were up last season, they spent, I think it was 10 mil at least on a new training ground. Leicester have just opened theirs. You see all these clubs open training grounds and like how good they are, and then you look at ours and just think, Mike Ashley's just not bothered. There was the talk where, when Rafa signed for it, like when we got Rafa.
Yeah.
Apparently, Mike Ashley and Lee Charnley sat down. They had the training ground. They had these plans in front, like development plans for a training ground in front of Rafa. And they were talking because Rafa said the training ground needs done before anything. And they were going, oh yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. The only thing he done in that training ground and in the stadium is a lick of paint. That's the only thing they done. They put some new paint around the walls. And apparently them plans still are just sat in Lee Charnley's office, and they've never seen the light of day.
Well, I listened to a podcast recently with Freddie Woodman's dad. Obviously, used to be a goalkeeper coach at Newcastle, and he said once a week, Ashley would just turn up in the middle of the training ground. You would hear his helicopter coming down, and he would just land on the first team pitch and just get out. It would be like him leaving his car in like Sainsbury's or something. He would just casually turn around, beat his helicopter shut, so none of the players would nick it.
A bit like,
I'm just walk in, and then just
all right, I'm here.
Yeah.
Aye.
And sort of just thinking like, does he really have to do that? He could just turn up in his car? Is he trying to stamp his authority? I mean, this was back. When was Pardew? 2012.
Yeah, I mean,
I suspect, Cameron, that he has a rather small penis.
Well,
I mean, if his helicopter's landing on the centre circle and blowing the balls everywhere, I think it's a big euphemism, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think Woodman kind of took it as like, what you doing? Like, you just ruined the entire training session.
But that's the thing. I don't think Mike Ashley cares. I mean, I don't think he's cared since the whole Lambias Wise. I think it's been since the fans of us turned against him. And now, like, he never spoke to the press. This was one thing that always got me. Mike Ashley was a very private man, never ever spoke to the press. And then remember the John Carver game against West Ham, last game of the season. I remember watching it, praying that we stay up. And then all of a sudden, Sky went, breaking news, we've got to talk with Mike Ashley. And I was like, wait, what? And that whole interview, you could just see how fabricated it was in every single interview he's done ever since. Like the one with David Craig. Do you remember that one on Sky Sports? He sat down with David Craig. Apparently, Mike Ashley's media team had wrote the questions down for Sky about what they can ask. And then
that's not uncommon.
I was going to say a lot.
No, but like, there's no challenging questions to the man that's running this club and not getting any flack for it. Like, I mean, you could even say Wesley Charnley. Like, this man's meant to be Mike Ashley's fall guy. So why is he not speaking? Why is this? You look at the club right now. Why is this solicitor running the club? Justin Barnes, Mike Ashley's legal man, is running Newcastle United with Lee Charnley. Like, what does that say?
It says that Ashley doesn't care.
Exactly. Where's Mike Ashley right now?
Probably he's in his house in London.
No, he's in Dubai.
I'm gonna try and spin a different narrative, lads.
Okay.
Just
Go for it.
humour me.
Go for it.
I don't think that he doesn't care.
Mhm.
I generally don't think that. I think a couple of things. First of all, he has a chip on his shoulder from the way that the Newcastle fans treated him at the very beginning because of the way that he behaved.
Mhm.
Because he thought, and I'd expect more of someone of his background, to be honest. But he had the same opinion that everyone up and down the country has of Geordies, that we are loud, leery, drunken fools here for everyone else's entertainment. Oh, yeah, these would be good to have a laugh with. We'll have a drink with these. And yeah, when you're on an away day, you're having lots of drinks on the coach down, drinks before you go into the game, drinks after the game. Obviously, we're the most northern city in England, so we naturally have the most travel. Probably followed just after by Sunderland, UCAM, or if you look at the very south, I mean, I know it's a league down, but Plymouth will have a nightmare getting anywhere. Bournemouth, Southampton, if it's outside of London.
Yeah.
But, these away days, he goes on one and thinks that that's all that we are, but sort of forgets that there are a million Geordies sat in their homes that have got like families, don't drink. I mean, it's a big issue that it's just a professional person shouldn't be behaving like that in the public eye, really. So he got that wrong. He received the backlash. He cowered into his box with his suit on. And since then, super quiet, very introverted, and has that chip on his shoulder. But also, there is this narrative that Mike Ashley is an incredibly intelligent person. It's something that I actually believed for a while, because you can't get to where he is without having some form of intelligence.
Yeah.
But being able to run a business where you exploit the weakest people in society, the poor, is very different to the multifaceted world of running a football club. And I just don't think he's smart enough to do it. He's not smart enough to understand football, because it's a paradoxical entity anyway. It is something that is owned by a man to make money, is a business, needs to be treated like a business, yet as something that is also owned by the fans and is there purely for entertainment and to win bits of silver.
Right.
And this is the issue that he cannot navigate. He cannot work his way around. If we look at what Sheikh Mansour's done at Man City, but yes, we can say that there might be some sort of sports washing in there. Abu Dhabi, of all those Middle Eastern places within the UAE, is certainly not the worst. It's not as bad as Qatar or Saudi or anything like that. But they've come in and understood that they've got loads of money, but what it takes to run a football club, that first of all, they needed to develop the area. They needed to improve the prospect of someone living in Manchester, because it's in the northwest. It's forever raining in Manchester. I'm yet to go when it hasn't rained.
Yeah, same.
It's not particularly close to London, and he's got to get big players to go there. He also hasn't just went off and bought massively expensive players, but every transfer window he has committed, he's bought coaches. He's constantly progressed these coaches. He's went for, at the time, what he considered to be the best coach that Manchester City could get. Mancini, Pellegrini, and then obviously, with Guardiola. But that's after they've been successful. Mancini came when they weren't successful. That was the best they could get. They ran it like a business, but they ran it like it was pro bono charity work for the area. And they also ran it like it was a progressive football club. And this is the big thing. There was a plan. Forever at Man City, there has been a plan that we are going to do this, and this. And that is stage one of a 3-year plan. Once we have established this base and we've done this, we are then going to do this, and then we are then going to do this. And the most stupid thing for me is, since we got promoted, I thought, like, on this occasion with Benitez, I thought for once we had a plan. I thought, you know what, 2 mid-table finishes. This is the most anti-Newcastle thing I've ever seen. We are 5th one season, 15th the next. This is perfect. We're going to build. It's going to be progressive. We're going to have this sort of transfer policy. Even before we got relegated the first time, in the Pardew era, when we're going out buying players like Vernon Anita and Kabay and Demba Ba, Chetiote, you're thinking, there's some sort of plan here.
Obviously so.
And then it just all goes horribly wrong. And ultimately, it's because exactly what you mentioned, Nathan, the training ground isn't good enough. People will come there, laugh at the facilities. There is a culture in Newcastle where players want to come and have a bevy. They want to go out in town. They want to have a laugh. It's not the most serious place in the world, let's be honest. And there's so much stuff going against us that we need structure within the club from top to bottom. And if he feels that we can't, compete in the transfer market against oligarchs, then there is another way. And it is something that in the 2000s, Sunderland and Middlesbrough did very well. It is something that since Sheikh Mansour came into Man City, that Man City have done very well. It's something that Chelsea have done better than anybody in England. Manchester United have been doing it. Look at Arsenal's team now. It's called a youth system. It's called developing young talent, coaching people. Arsenal's best players this season have all been youth prospects, outside of Odegaard, who is still a young player. But you look at Smith Rowe, Saka, like, these are the players that have performed week in, week out for them since they've been in the team. Look at Chelsea's team, how many young players have came through their youth system. And not just for them, Brighton's best player at the first half of the season was Tariq Lamptey, who came from Chelsea's youth system.
Well, that's the thing. I remember my granddad telling us he went to the senior supporter meeting, obviously pre-COVID, and he said they had the head of youth recruitment on there. He said, if you look at the leagues, all 4 divisions, he said Sunderland's up there with, Man United's, Chelsea's, is the most productive youth academy in England. But obviously the counterpart was, we want them in the first team. And obviously we haven't seen them in the first team until we've dropped all the way down to League One, where you got like Denver Hume, Lyndon Gooch, George Honeyman, players like that. So I think fans would like to see, obviously Newcastle's got Elliot Anderson, who I think is a really good player.
Matty Longstaff's still there. Like, Matty Longstaff's been put back into the academy, basically. He's just been forgotten. He signed a new contract, and then
played against Sunderland under 20s the other day.
Well,
you learn more in there than you will obviously Bruce anyway. But it's forever been a problem in Newcastle. Have we ever had a youth player come through? Go.
Carroll.
He's the most notable
how long ago
one.
was that then? So you're right, Nate.
Exactly.
Carroll's
right. At that point, you've got Carroll, Stephen Taylor, players like that. But, like, non-realistically, in the last few years, you look like since then, really, no one really come through and shone. Like, Adam Armstrong was in our academy, and then we'll let him go because, in John Carver's words, he was crap. Now he's the top scorer in the championship and doing very well. Ivan Toney.
Best
striker in England.
I mean, that is just this is Newcastle all over. I'm in a WhatsApp group with lots of guys from London, from when I lived there. And they put in the group that Premier League teams are looking to spend 35 million on Ivan Toney. And they're all like talking about this kid going, oh, he's young, he's this, that, and the other. And I've just put loads of laughy faces. And they went, oh, what do you not rate him down? I went, Newcastle sold him for 600 grand. What are you doing?
There was a squad photo yesterday going around of an old squad photo with Ivan Toney, and guess who was right next to him as well? Another brilliant young right back in Kevin Mbabu.
Yeah.
Newcastle. He was in our academy.
Left back for us, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I watched Ivan Toney play for Peterborough last season. He is a fantastic striker. He's so good.
Well, I've just found this. It was like, do you remember Dan? I don't know if you remember him. There was a player called Victor Fernandez.
Yeah, winger.
Yes.
So he's come out, and this is what he's actually said about like Newcastle as a club. He was there at the beginning. It was a good place to be. I was happy playing, but after my injury, it all went crap. No one cared about me, and at that moment, I felt like I was done. There was never a chance given to anyone except Matty Longstaff. And he scored against Man United. Now he's got a 2-year contract with a first-team wage. I think Newcastle United's academy is there because it has to be. They don't care about what happens there.
I don't think it's there because it has to be. Because if you look at Brentford, they've completely gotten rid of their academy, and now they have like a B team system.
B-team. Yeah, the B team beat Newcastle in the cup.
So I think saying that the academy is not there is kind of invalid because there's teams that are proven to bring through the younger players into the first team.
At that point of
without an academy,
no one's been given a chance but Matty.
I think Matty Longstaff only got a chance because his brother was in the first team.
Yeah.
B, local lad, and C, he was probably the best player out of a bad bunch.
But that says a lot about our academy, that he was the best player out of a bad bunch, when a lot of clubs have more than one player that can get through. Like, there's apparently another lad. There was that lad a couple of years ago, Elias Sorensen.
Striker.
Yeah, he was meant to be the next best thing coming through. Remember Adam Campbell? He was meant to be the next best thing.
Plays for Gateshead now.
Yeah, he plays for Gateshead now.
Well, this is what I meant.
Yannick Toure.
Striker.
This is what I meant, lads. Like, obviously, I know that we've had Matty and Sean come through. What's happening with their careers? I know that we had Andy Carroll come through. Like, yeah, he had an okay career. And I know that, obviously, Stephen Taylor came through. But what I mean is, when I'm saying, like, about players coming through, Marcus Rashford's came through with Mason Greenwood in Man United's academy, and they are worth X amount of money, will be getting X amount of international caps, can play for any team in the world. Like, they are phenomenal players. Every single team in the league, if Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford were available, would want to buy both of them. When you look at Chelsea's team, they are players that play regularly, are getting international call-ups, are progressing. And that's what I mean. Like, when was the last time we produced a player like that? And you're right, it's Andy Carroll, really, because Sean's had one good season and Matty's had half a good season. And I think they've been ostracised within the group, probably because they are Geordies and thinking, what the hell's going on here? But they need a coach who's going to development. They are young boys. They can't just be the finished article because they can play. They need to be coached every day by a higher caliber of manager. So that it's not surprising that they're going to fail. Stephen Taylor got the best out of his talent. But when we look at the great Geordie players, and there have been a lot of them, we've not been the ones to develop them. Shearer wasn't developed by us.
Carrick.
Brian Robson wasn't developed by us.
Carrick,
was Beardsley developed by us? I'm not sure. Michael Carrick wasn't developed by us. So the last great player.
Even Shola Shortire.
Say that again?
That Shola at Man United, the Shola Shortire. he came on against Newcastle.
Oh, yeah.
Newcastle got rid of him.
Exactly. It
Well,
says it all though.
The Longstaff's cousin plays for Liverpool, and he's meant to be the best of the three. But the last player that, for me, that we brought through that we could possibly consider to have the potential to be world class was Paul Gascoigne in 89, 90.
Yeah.
Sold, and even then, when he was 18, 19 or whatever he was, we sold him for $2 million to Spurs, which was a lot of money at the time. But it's just, I'm sick of being a Newcastle fan because there's never anyone to look forward to. There's never a player that will go, wow, look at what we have. Like, even Liverpool have got Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones can play for probably any, well, not probably. Curtis Jones can play for any team in the league. I even think he could be a squad player at Man City. He wouldn't start, but he'd walk into Manchester United's midfield ahead of Fred. And they're second in the league.
I think when you look, like you just said there, like, it's hard being a Newcastle fan. I think it's more that, like, for me, it's now at a point where it's like the club I grew up loving, like, you know, watching the Champions League nights and seeing we're challenging just even that little bit. It's dead.
So
it's not
it's
there
just
anymore.
The hope, isn't it, Nathan?
Yeah, the hope's gone.
It's the hope's gone. And that's the biggest killer.
This is the argument we have, like, obviously in the group chat, like, you know, Cameron's adamant that we're staying up. But in, like, obviously you've put to me, Cameron, obviously you think I'm very negative on it. But it's like we've just said, me and Dan have both said there, the hope is gone. That hope of, we can get out of this. Nah.
Right, so last question on Newcastle. If Newcastle went down and Mike Ashley sold, not to the Saudis. So the Saudis went down. Mike Ashley wants too much for a championship club. In the fans stepped up and went, right, we'll buy the club, like they tried to do when Mike Ashley first put the club up for sale in 2009.
Then he took it off the market.
Would you like Newcastle to be fan owned, or do you think they'll have too much of a how would you word it? Bias, where they're like, oh, this has to be done, but it's not the right thing for the club? I
don't know, because right, I'm going to make an example of Rangers here. Rangers are now fan owned. And it's going well there for them in the way they're playing. They're getting in Europe, they're making the money through there. If it's ran that way, because they had obviously the intermediary of Dave King, and then Dave King sold it to the fans increased their stake as it went on. So they had someone take the club, and then the fans built up as they went along. I can't see Mike Ashley selling the fans for the clear fact of he doesn't like it.
It could be for the clear fact that the Rangers fans took it off him when he wanted to buy Rangers. Because he was involved in Rangers and he wanted to buy it. He wasn't allowed to upgrade his stake because of conflicting interests or something like that.
Yeah, but that the fans only got so much of it. Dave King took the majority at the time, and then the fans took it back out of date. Like, Dave King then sold it to the fans as it went down, and then this season, that's when they announced, obviously, the fans, like 1892, whatever it was, they now own the club. Basically, they are the outright owners. Dave King's still somewhere. But I don't think Mike Ashley would. I think the only way I would take it is if we went down and say, not even the Saudis, like, you know, just someone that's got a bit more ambition, a little bit more, like, they're going to care for the club, like, you know, bring back all these things we've just talked about. I would take going down if it was sold. Obviously, there's still the whole talk that, I think I read it earlier, the consortium are still interested if we go down. Obviously, Mike Ashley will have to renegotiate a price, but he's apparently open to doing this. I think he literally just wants out now no matter what.
I think he'll create some sort of agreement where
if you go up first season.
I get the difference.
Yes. I could see something like that, but I could see, I don't know if Dan's in the same agreement. Like, if we went down, like, and say it was, like, you know, I know you said say it wasn't, but let's say it was the Saudis. A lot of fans obviously would take that. And I think it'd just be mad to see the richest club in the world in the championship, because we would be that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like part of us would take it because yesterday's might actually gone and that could be a new start for us. And yes, I know it's in the Championship, but if it's the right owner and the right investment in the Championship, we could get out of there. Obviously, it is now at a point where the Championship is a lot of money to get out of. Like, you've got to spend well and recruit well and have the right manager. And at the moment, with Mike Ashley, we don't have that. We won't spend well, we won't recruit well, and the manager we've got struggled with a good Villa side.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just think, do we risk going down in the hopes that Mike Ashley sells, or is there an agreement in place that if we go down, are the EFL tests easier than the Premier League tests to go through?
Nathan, I love like the way you're talking. Like, we get to decide whether we go down or
Yeah.
not. It's like, well, I mean, it's
Do you want to
maybe
go
worth a
down?
risk going down.
It isn't.
I'm telling you now, if someone gave me the choice right now,
Mhm.
and I had to press the button, Dan, do you want to stay up or do you want to go down? And stay up. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd stay up. Obviously,
even if
I'd love
that's
to
Mike
stay up,
Ashley
but I
in the
think
job next year, like even if Mike Ashley's got to keep the club for another season,
Mhm.
I'd rather stay in the league because hopefully, if we stayed up, he knows that he's got the money next year to go, right, I'm going to take 4 million out of the transfer budget to sack Steve Bruce.
I would love it if he did that, but I don't think he will. I think it.
Don't think he wants to sack Steve Bruce because he doesn't believe that he can get in another manager that can turn it around. So he's going to lose all his money and then another 4 million.
Mhm.
Whereas if he can stay up, nab the money, sack Steve Bruce for 4 million, and then, you know, if he ends up selling it, he can go, well, I've just sacked him for 4 million, so you can stick that on or claim as expensive. Or he can take the money out of the club as he does anyway. But especially with COVID and stuff like that, for what it's done to the footballing landscape, going down is going to be a nightmare. I think it's more likely that we would do a Sunderland and bounce straight back up.
Yeah, unless taking over and.
Oh yeah, unless we got to go over.
Speaking on that though, what do we reckon they'll actually, out of all of it, what do you reckon Ashley's actually went to court for? Because we've talked about how Ashley is and that. What do you reckon he's went to court for? Do you reckon he's went for a compensation, or do you reckon he's went to try and push this takeover through?
I think he's went to push it through.
Yeah.
And if there are damages to be claimed, then he will be looking to get those damages, and it'll be for him, not the club. So like,
well, in this takeover, he's win-win anyways because he got a £17 million non-refundable deposit.
Did he?
Yeah. So if the takeover
why doesn't he
fails,
use that to sack Steve Bruce?
Exactly, he's got that sat in his bank.
That's to pay for his helicopter.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Exactly. It's to pay for all the balls that he's lost.
That's
he's blown away in the bushes.
Right. So after the massively long debate over Newcastle and what Nathan and Dan think about Newcastle, we will move on to another team that are right behind them in Fulham. Fulham, obviously managed by, in my opinion, one of the brightest English managers probably since early 90s in Scott Parker. Agree with me on this point or disagree. Fulham have played well 90% of the season so far, but they can't get the results. And I think that's why Newcastle will end up staying up rather than Fulham going down.
Disagree. Thumbs down. Thumbs down on everything you just said there. I don't think Fulham have played well for 90% of the season at all. I think they had a horrendous start, and they are lucky that Sheffield United and West Brom played so badly at the beginning as well, particularly Sheffield United.
Yeah.
So no, I think it took Fulham a good 6 months, maybe not that long, but a good few months to start nicking a few points here and there and ultimately start playing well. That being said, particularly since January, Fulham have been a massively improved side. They are the most improved team in the league by far. And it's a case of the lead that we had over them that we've lost is a kind of an indicator of what's going to happen for the rest of the season, especially when you look at their run compared to ours. Yeah. So for me, I disagree with the fact that they've played well for 90% of the season. I think they played well for 40 to 50% of the season. But their forms came at the right time. I appreciate, like you say, they might struggle with one or two results here or there, but they are still, in my opinion, on paper, the third worst team in the league. It's just, I do agree with you, Cameron. Scott Parker's doing a really good job there, organising them well. And they've got a couple of bright sparks, like, whereas we've got where we've got Maxman injured, they've got Luckman, who's able to play. Yeah, you've got, I mean, Madja. Anthony Robinson. Josh Madja's a 6 goals a season striker. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
and he's got 2 of them already. So, and that he's only playing half a season. So you've got Josh Madja will score 1 more goal from now to the end of the season.
Big against us last day of the season. Probably,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, it'll be against us, especially with him coming from the Sunderland Academy.
Exactly.
He didn't. He come from the Sunderland. He came from Fulham's Academy, and we nabbed him.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then he's just gone back to Fulham. Took the long route back
via Bordeaux.
Isn't he on loan at Fulham though?
Yeah, but I think they've got an agreement. If they stay up, be 10 million or something for him.
Okay. I mean, Dan's right. Looking at Fulham's form, it just reminds you of like the Newcastle turnaround, like under Rafa, like we've talked about. And it's like once January hits, they've been possibly one of the best teams form-wise in the league. And it's just, I think Brighton, safe. I think literally, when you look at it, I think it's literally between us and Fulham. Unless Southampton keep losing games, do they get dragged into it?
Yeah.
But I think it's an all-out dogfight between us and Fulham. I mean, Brighton are another one. They play good football. They just sometimes can't normally score goals, but they did the other week. But you know,
Brighton are the team that you've described, Cameron. Brighton are the team that's played well for 90% of the season.
Yeah.
Can't convert. Team. Brighton have been wonderful. I tell you what, people say, "Oh, who do you want as Newcastle manager?"
Graham Potter.
Potter. Give me Potter all day long because they've got a couple of good players. You know, Trossard is fantastic.
I really like Trossard.
Lewis Dunk's great. Lamptey, who's only played at the beginning of the season, he's great, but they've had to survive without him for the second half of the season. Beyond that, do they have anyone outstanding? Pascal Gross is a bit in and out.
For most of the season, they've played Robert Sanchez in goal. Now he's came out of nowhere. He was on loan at League One, League Two. He's not very good. He's just been called up to Spain as well.
Yeah, but I mean, look at their keepers.
But it's an interesting thing that their so-called like first choice goalkeeper since they've been promoted is now sat on the bench at Arsenal.
Yeah,
he had a bit of a torrid time at the beginning of the season, didn't he? But he's been Matt Ryan had been fantastic for a while, and then he's had a bad start, and it's all sort of gone wrong for him. But I'd go for Potter. What he's doing with those players, he could do for Newcastle.
Yeah,
we have better players than Brighton, other than Trossard. We have better players, and like I say, Lewis Dunk. But we don't have a plan. We have zero clue on how to play. We don't know whether we're trying to play like counter-attacking football, high press. We refuse to change formations. We will play a counter-attacking system because we have 4 quick players in Wilson, Almiron, Fraser, and St. Maximin. But when 3 of them are injured, we'll continue to play that way instead of going, you know what? The reason we played this way is because of these players and these are all out. We now have this group of players, therefore we should suit their needs more. So we've got Ryan Fraser, who can cross a ball, and Jacob Murphy, who is fantastic at crossing a ball.
Yeah.
And then we've got Joelinton and Andy Carroll, who are both 6 foot plus and put themselves about a little bit. Well, Andy Carroll a lot.
I mean, Joel's confused about where he goes.
I wonder what sort of system we should play with these players. Oh, yes. Fast-paced counter-attacks. You're a moron, Steve.
I do agree on one point Cameron made, and I do think Parker is a very good manager up and coming, and yes. I do see him going like to, no offense to Fulham obviously, but a bigger club.
Nah, I think Scott Parker is the new Alan Kirbishley.
Oh wow! I heard Alan there and went to one person. I thought, wow, that's more of an insult.
I was talking to one of my mates the other day about Scott Parker, and I said he will be the first English manager to win the Premier League.
No.
Wow.
I honestly,
no chance, Cameron.
No, honestly, because in our group chat, I said it with Man United, and Man United's doing it. I'm saying it with Scott Parker now. Scott Parker, in 10 years' time, will have won a Premier League.
As an assistant.
He will have won a Premier League.
I don't see that personally.
I think
he's a very good. I think he's a very good manager.
Personally,
but
it's that opinion was just based off the Brexit and the work permit rules that they won't be able to go and get. It'll be harder to get the foreign managers to come in and buy all these players, like these young players from South America, like your Vinicius Juniors and your Gabriel Jesus's and all them. So I think that'll get a break. The young English manager will get a break and obviously end up at the higher clubs. He might end up at like a Leicester or someone like that and do what Leicester did, because I can see Leicester. Leicester are now an established top 6, top 4
I think
team.
Graham Potter is a better manager than Scott Parker, and he plays a system and a brand of football that would attract top clubs more than Scott Parker. Scott Parker is a very good coach, but I see him having a career like a Sam Allardyce. I think he's a better coach than Sam Allardyce. But Sam Allardyce, back in his day of football, those mid-2000s, for the brand of football that the Premier League played, was a top coach. I mean, he got Bolton to 6th or something ridiculous. Yeah. Like I say, Alan Kirbishley did well with Charlton for a number of years, and it all fell apart when he moved to West Ham, really. But for Charlton, he did well. But the big job after Charlton was West Ham. You never got Sam Allardyce. These managers, they don't get Man United's, Arsenal's, Chelsea's, Liverpool's. Like, not. You've either got to be a club legend to get a job at these places, or be an established coach.
Yeah.
Whether the rules for employment have changed or not, like even if there was a rule, which there's not, but let's say there's a rule where you have to have a British coach, there are better British coaches, I think, like Brendan Rodgers and Graham Potter, I'd put above Scott Parker personally.
I can see where you come from that. I do think that Brendan Rodgers, he should have already won a Premier League, but probably will win a Premier League at some point within his.
Sorry, I've fallen into the Jamie Carragher trap. Yeah, Brendan Rodgers isn't British. He's from the United Kingdom.
Yes.
Sorry.
How could you be so stupid?
I'll just leave now, lads.
But yeah, so going back to my original point of Fulham not being able to close out results, like they might take the lead as they did against Man United, but then they allowed Man United to come straight back at them instantly. So that's one of the main reasons I think they'll go down, is just the inability to close out winning positions.
If you look at Fulham's next few games, right, they've got Villa away on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're playing
shocking without Jack Grealish, though.
Absolutely exactly. Shocking. Then they've got Wolves at home.
Then they've got a tough run though. They've got Arsenal away, Chelsea away, Burnley at home.
But at the same time, while they're playing them, we've got Burnley away. We've got Tottenham at home. Tottenham like next week. Then we've got West Ham at home. Then we've got Liverpool away, and I think Liverpool away is actually a game in hand, so that helps. But then we've got Arsenal at home.
Anyone can beat Liverpool away at the minute. And
then we've got Leicester City away. Out of the run-ins, we've probably got the worst one out of us and Fulham, really.
But Man City?
Man City at home.
See what I'm saying, though? Newcastle, in history, pull out results.
Don't, Cameron, you said this.
No.
Right. It's a lie.
You do, though. beating Man
Also,
United
Cameron,
1-0.
Cameron, what happened on the last day of the season when we just had to get a draw at Aston Villa and we couldn't manage that?
But no,
What happened when
no,
I'm not being
Dan,
funny? What
Dan.
happened when we went down the second time, right? And all we needed to do is go to the bottom of the league, Norwich, and get a result there, and we're lost 4-3 or something stupid.
No,
We
We
have to be
do
better
not
than
pull
this.
results.
against
We don't
against
pull
the bigger
results.
team. No, against the big teams, you get results. Like you're beating Tottenham 5-1 at no, he's already down. It was just a pride
We're
thing.
only down
I thought
in every other time,
Man-
every other
beating Man
season in the
United
last
last
5
season
years,
1-0.
we've lost to Tottenham at home. Cameron, every time there's been a competitive game at Tottenham. Bear in mind that game when we beat Tottenham 5-1 was because Tottenham had literally just lost the league to Leicester, and they were just like, nah, we are done. We're on the beat. We have a good record away at Tottenham, not at home. Tottenham beat us 2-0, 2-1 pretty much every frigging time at St James's Park.
I'm saying anyone can beat Liverpool currently at home. Away.
But Cameron, we can say that, but that's when they had Fabinho and Henderson playing at centre backs. Now that Fabinho's playing holding midfield, they're back to being far more formidable than us. I mean, you can say anyone can beat them, but just look at our team. Look at what Brighton did to our team, and then go, oh yeah, Sadio Mane, Jota, and Mo Salah won't rip them a new one.
Obviously, but I'm saying if you look at your final fixtures, Leicester you get beat. West Ham
United will get beat.
West Ham will smash her.
West Ham's a chance, but I think they will
slap her.
Yeah. I think Burnley away is a key match.
I think we'll draw there.
Last two, and then your last two are the key matches as well. Obviously, Fulham last game of the season. And if there's fans in the ground, then it'll be definitely higher stakes.
Yeah,
it seems like there's more to play for rather than just sounding like a reserve team game.
I do think we will be the team that go. But because even if it goes down to goal difference, we are miles behind. But I don't know. Like part of us does think, could Southampton get dragged in there the way they're playing?
No, because you can say they can get dragged in, but we've still got to get in.
True.
Do you see us getting more points than Southampton?
I don't see.
Otherwise, it's a frivolous argument to make anyway.
I only see us getting another 2 points.
See, you can say that about Burnley, but Burnley's level on points and level on goal difference. Southampton.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say Burnley are more likely than Southampton because they've got to play us. So if we beat them, then that's 3 points gained on them, if you know what I mean, if you get that. So they've got more of a chance of getting dragged in than Southampton, but it's not. It's between us and Fulham.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I kind of want to pose it a different way. The Premier League teams earn a lot of money, more than any other league in the world, and there is a reason for it. It's because Premier League teams provide a certain level of entertainment from top to bottom. Therefore, to be worthy of that money, do you provide the entertainment required? This is a product. Ultimately, and this is a different question to ask, between Fulham and Newcastle, which team provides a better product to earn the Premier League money?
I mean, on a comedy side, Newcastle, but on an actual footballing side, then Fulham.
But if I think Fulham offer the attacking entertainment, but I just don't. As I say, I don't think they can defend.
We can't defend.
But we can't defend.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. They can't defend, and you've got you've got 2 more points than them.
That's off the start. I think we're just still that bit higher because of their poor run that they had, like we said. And
they were dreadful at the start.
We had that good little run where everyone thought, like, Bruce is going to take. We're top 10 and we're closer to Europe than we were closer to the relegation zone. And then the gloves came off and it went his way.
I'm telling you what, though, like the biggest shock result of the season with hindsight is Newcastle beating West Ham 2-0 away.
Yeah.
Because West Ham always happens at the start of the season where a team will do that. I remember when Blackpool beat Portsmouth 4-0 and Portsmouth were a good team then.
No.
There can be one of those little results where you're like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And that it just first game of the season adrenaline. we've given up the. I mean, the gloves are off. The gloves are off because the gloves are off because we've thrown in the towel, given up, and taken the gloves off to go back in the changing rooms. That's why the gloves are off.
The boots are basically off.
Fight's over. So we aren't putting up any kind of a fight to stay in the league.
We've lost the best midfielder.
The injuries have hurt. Yeah. We've lost our. I mean, certainly over the last few weeks, our 3 best players in Maximan, Wilson, and Almiron. Other than Darlow, who I still can't believe has been dropped. And
could Wilson and Maxi make a difference to it though? Like in these running games, could like against Tottenham? Could you see Wilson with Tottenham's dodgy defence? Wilson apparently both of them are back for the Tottenham game.
I know, but I mean they can be back all they want, but in 2 games time they'll get injured again.
Well, I think this is the problem with Maximan, is that the reason he got let go. Well, the reason he was allowed to leave France was due to his injuries. And people said his hamstring goes like in an instant, and it's very.
He's injured. That's the frustrating thing with him. Like really, when you look at him, like he falls over and he's down on the floor for 20 minutes.
He's going quick. As someone that used to be a sprinter, when you're running quickly and someone clips you, you're like. The effect is massive, and obviously you hit the ground. When you're running faster, you hit the ground faster.
Yeah, I know.
Like just hitting the floor hurts.
He could end up like a French Theo Walcott.
Yeah, I think he's got so much talent, and he's important. We need to play him. Like if he gets injured again, he gets injured again. But we need to play him, and he needs to be protected still. He should be playing, in my opinion. The last half an hour of these games where you can have a good warm-up, you can come on and you can affect the game when it's tired until the last couple of games of the season when we need to be firing on all cylinders and
start them against the teams that can't handle them. Like when you're looking like the Burnley game, the Sheffield United game, stuff like that. Play them in them games.
Play him central?
No, because that's why you're playing Wilson. Just play him in his actual position of left mid, and then if you're going to play anyone down the centrally, like where you can do well and exploit teams, you put Almiron there, because since Almiron's went at the 10, like in them games, like look at us against Everton, right? Almiron was brilliant that game, and it's because he was actually playing his natural position, and I think that's been our downfall a lot of this season. Yes, I get it. Part of it probably is down to the injuries, and but a lot of players have been played out of position. And I just think if you played them players like where to play, like Miggy's took two seasons for Bruce to realise he's a number 10. Look at the last game against Brighton. He played Fraser as a forward for half the game.
He's a joke, and then he's got Dwight Gale playing on the left. When just put, Dwight Gale just put him in the box. Like if you give Dwight Gale two chances, you'll miss one absolute sitter. And he'll put another one away. Yeah. And that's all you've got to do, create 2 chances for him. Put him up front with either bloody Joel, or if you put him up front with Andy Carroll, put him up front with Andy Carroll. Let Andy Carroll just cause mayhem because he's a lump that can't score out, but he'll put himself about. And Dwight Gale will just sniff out a chance. And like I say, he'll miss an open goal and then he'll put one in the back of the net. And that's what we need.
I'll just say though, like to fully end the Joe Linton thing. It's not that he's isn't a good player, but his hold-up play, like you can't fault his effort. Like these are the points that you can get out of him and say, right, he's not a goal scorer. I think we've all established that he's not a goal scorer. And if he was signed as a goal scorer, I want to know who was sniffing glue when they signed him. But my point is, he's a very good hold-up man. I mean, you watch him; he was bullying some players in some games, like against Villa. He had Mings on his backside half the time.
He's not a very gifted technical player. He can't pass and he can't shoot. I mean, he refuses to shoot anyway.
I think he's scared to shoot. I honestly think he's scared to shoot.
He can't play like a Firmino roller out because he doesn't have the ability to pass between 2 players. So like unfortunately, he's a bit useless. And I don't really know what else to say. It's just there isn't much hope unless we can somehow survive. And the problem is we can come up with all these ideas and all these suggestions, in all these really smart ways of playing.
Manager Steve Bruce.
The manager, Steve Bruce. The man who decided to go, I'm playing it my way, played 4 at the back against Arsenal and 5 at the back against Sheffield United. And you're like, Steve, it's the other way around, mate. But
What's going wrong for Steve? Everything.
And this is the thing, like, even as a Newcastle fan, I can sit here and be like critical of our fan base sometimes when I hear some of the stuff being said. It's just like, I'm really happy you aren't the manager either. And yet every single Newcastle fan that I listen to comes up with a better suggestion than what's being put out there. And we're total laymen, lads, like the three of us are. We love football, we read about it, we love watching it, we just love the game, we love our clubs. But the frightening thing is, we are being more productive with ideas and systems and tactics than an actual Premier League manager.
With over 1,000.
And that is frightening.
Yeah. Look, I think you've made some good points, but overall, if you look at the last 8 games, I still believe Newcastle will pick up the 3 or 4 points needed, and that Fulham won't get. Even though Fulham have on paper got the easier fixtures, they have still got that tough run where that could knock the confidence out the window. Where they play Wolves, Arsenal, Chelsea, Burnley, then Southampton, Man United, then obviously you. So they have still got a tough run.
Out of Burnley, Sheffield United, and one of them big games, that if we can just nick something out of them games, because one of them teams couldn't be playing for nothing by then. City could have the league wrapped up by the time we play them, and they could be focusing more on Europe, so it could give her a little chance to at least try and nick a draw. But I mean, I'm very hopeful there. But if we don't nick anything from, say, the Burnley game and the Sheffield United game, then we deserve to go down anyways for the way we've played in the last 20. I mean, we're set up to draw against Sheffield United. But the way Fulham have played since the turn of January, I do think they should be the team staying in the league, because that form has been brilliant, while ours has been relegation, even championship relegation. I mean, half the time, Cameron, I'm not saying it as like a knockdown on Sunderland, but half the time you look at it and you think Sunderland's League One squad could turn us over.
They couldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I would absolutely not go that far.
I would sometimes when you watch them. I mean, look at us against Brighton, for instance. I could see half the championship turning us over with the way we played. I mean, Brentford's B team turned it over.
I mean, if you look at the championship, is a hard league, and all the teams in that league have some form of. They have some danger man which can tear any team apart on their day. But the reason they're in the championship is their day is 3 times a season.
Like Pookie against for Norwich.
Well, it's like Pookie. What fantastic championship striker. Goes in the Premier League, has a good 2 months.
Yeah.
Then goes missing.
Yeah, because he scored a hat-trick against Newcastle.
Hey.
Joel Linton scored. No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
He almost scored.
And Danny Welbeck
Cameron, I can count on my hand. I can count on my hand how many games Joel Linton scored in.
But this is a good point. You got Dwight Gale on the bench.
Exactly.
I know it's not a prolific Premier League striker, and he is sort of like that Timu Pukki championship goal scorer, can't really do it in the Premier League. But if you stick him up front, as Dan said, 2 chances, he's going to score. And this is the way Sunderland played when we had Jermaine Defoe.
Mm-hmm.
We had a big man on the wing, Joel Linton, Andy Carroll. We hoofed it to him, and that dragged the centre half out of the wing because the right back couldn't handle it. And the space in the centre was just left there for Jermaine Defoe to bag 18 goals in a season.
Exactly. They're called tactics, Cameron.
Steve Bruce doesn't go by them. He has actually openly said in an interview.
We did finish bottom of the league that season.
Get in.
We did finish bottom of the league that season, but that was just because we had.
I mean, you had John O'Shea at centre back.
John O'Shea and Jason Denier, who admittedly is playing Champions League football.
Yeah.
But obviously wasn't the best at the time.
Lee Cattermole centre mid.
What a player.
Exactly. But I think Newcastle's team compared to Fulham's team, I think Fulham have the better offensive team, but I think
I wouldn't.
I know goal difference doesn't show it, and I know
No,
he's
that's
going to go for it.
I'm not going with goal difference. The point I was going to pick up on there is you've said Fulham have got the better offensive team.
Yeah.
On paper, if you look at the offensive team, our front line is a lot more formidable than theirs. It's just the fact that ours are injured and barely, obviously, one player has scored 54% of our goals.
If you look at your recruitment, Newcastle's recruitment, you look at it over the past 2 seasons. St. Maximin, injury prone. Callum Wilson, injury prone. Ryan Fraser thought he was going to move to Arsenal, didn't get it. Now he's in a mood that he's not playing in a mid-table Premier League team. So you've just signed players who have either been thrown. Ryan Fraser's been thrown out by Bournemouth.
Exactly.
Where's Bournemouth now? Bournemouth's struggling to get in the Championship playoffs.
I mean, when I look at our recruitment, like, if we're going to go on that, we needed a right back. We've got a left back. I still think he's young and he's a bit inexperienced. He could get better.
He's been terrible, let's be honest.
Yeah, I was trying to be nice, though, Dan. I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, he is young and he can get better. So you are right, but he has been terrible.
Well, centre-backs are a joke. I don't care what anyone says Jamal Lascelles is pathetic.
Good leader. Rafa Benitez wouldn't have chosen him as captain if he wasn't a good leader.
True, but
I don't think Jamal Lascelles is pathetic. I think he's an okay Premier League centre.
I think he's another one who's been hindered by injuries.
For me, though, when I've watched a lot of games, he's been the one that's been at fault for a lot of the goals. He's always the one that's out of position, that little bit where the player gets past. Yeah, I'll give him that. All right, calm down. I know I said a bad thing.
He's our top goal scorer this season, isn't he?
No, not that close yet.
Far off.
He's scored the same amount of goals this season as Joel has in Premier League history.
Get in.
He's a new John Terry.
But you look across our midfield and we're screamed out for a midfielder because the man we've got, and Steve Bruce loves him, and I don't know why Steve Bruce loves him. And the sun shines out of his baldy backside. We've got John Joe Shelby, who he makes one pass a season.
Did you see that podcast?
Yes,
that John Joe Shelby did, where he's talking about Rodrigo. He's talking about Rodrigo.
Oh my God!
He went to Rodrigo. He went, "Listen,
can you stop running?
Why are you running around?"
He actually asked him. He asked him. He went, I would hate to play in Bielsa's team because he makes these players run round." Jesus Christ!
Absolutely, I cannot stand the man. He's everything wrong with the club, John Joe Shelby, and he's got a wealth of talent. And look, I'll be fair. Over the years, he's been okay. This season,
he's been terrible,
horrendous.
He should have been yanked out of that team, put in the reserves, and just left there.
Says everything that he gets to play every week. And someone like Matty Longstaff doesn't, because Matty, say what you like about him, he's the hardest working midfielder we've got.
Him and Willock would be brilliant in the midfield because Willock, I've got to say, since Joe Willock come in, he's been very good.
I wouldn't go as far as saying
there's no physicality in that midfield. If you play Willock and Longstaff, Matty Longstaff next to each other, they'll get bullied.
You'd have to play Isaac, but Isaac's injured. Isaac's been great, but
Isaac Hayden's been one of our best players this season. Easily.
Yeah, comfortably.
I think since he signed, he's probably been one of your best players.
He's been the most consistent, definitely one of the best. I think he's been an absolutely brilliant signing.
I think he's very underrated as a holding midfielder, Isaac Hayden.
But if you go back to the point of like the Fulham Newcastle comparisons, Fulham defensively, it looks like realistically, they've probably got a better defence than us. Because I mean, their left back is it the left back or the right back? Both of them. Sorry,
which one?
Aina
is
a
right
very
back.
good. Is miles better than our right backs. And the left back, Robinson, he's another one brilliant player.
But to be fair, I wouldn't go the good, as I said, going forward, and that's why when Aina played for Torino, he was a wing back / winger. He was a left winger at some points. Well, and then same with Robinson. Robinson obviously could have went to AC Milan, but he had the heart issue.
What was that one? It was.
He just had an issue with his heart that failed his medical. But
I like how you said just there, Cameron. He just had a little issue with his heart. Oh yeah,
just an issue.
But he's fine now.
Yeah, he's had a heart sprain. Oh, geez.
He's all right now.
He's playing the
Scott,
Premier
what's he
League.
done? What's he done? Oh, he's tweaked his heart.
But no, as I said, going forward, very good, but defensively, very shaky. I think Robinson, that's just because of lack of experience. He's played lower end Championship League One football for all his professional career, and then Iron's played in Italy on the left wing, and now he's came to the Premier League and played at right back.
They've got a very good goalkeeper as well, though. I mean, Alphonse Areola.
Oh, he's kept them in a lot of games.
He's kept them in. I think part of the reason, like down to Fulham's form, like like we said, defensively they're a bit shaky. He's kept them in it.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
He's
brilliant. Already?
He's on loan from PSG. He was linked. He'll go back.
He'll go back, and
he was at Real Madrid the season before.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he'll go back and he'll be PSG's keeper because he's
the
better
best thing
than not Navas, their second goalkeeper. Can't remember his name now. Sergio Rigo.
He was at Fulham.
He was at Bournemouth as well.
He was Fulham's goalkeeper when they got relegated the last time.
Yeah, and then he went to Bournemouth last season, and then Bournemouth got relegated.
So, but then you've got Fulham centre halves. You got Anderson, who I think is actually a really good centre half.
I like that in Guisa.
The midfielder.
In the midfield, I think
he's another one who
kind of player.
He took his dummy out when they got relegated and wouldn't play in the Championship. But and then they've got Tosin Adarabioyo, who is a Championship defender, and I think that's part of the reason Fulham are where they are, is that they've done what Sheffield United did last season. They went, we'll go out and spend the money on the good Championship players and hope that they make a step up.
Yeah.
And obviously it worked for Sheffield United last season to an extent. But obviously after lockdown, Sheffield United went straight downhill, and now they're rock bottom. And I think Fulham are heading that way. If they can sort out the defence for the last couple of games, last 8 games of the season, then they have a chance of staying up because they will score goals. But I don't think Areola can save them by himself. And I think that's why they go down. So just to finish it, we'll ask Nathan and Dan who they think will be the team that goes down, although I think everyone should know the answer that they're going to give based off the last hour and a bit. So, Nathan, who do you think will go down?
Newcastle, and they'll stick with Steve Bruce in the Championship, and I'll cry my eyes out for a whole season.
Enjoy. I hope Sunderland don't get promoted then.
I hope you do.
And Dan, who do you think will go down?
Thanks for having me, Cameron. Newcastle.
You're more than welcome. Anytime. I think Fulham, just because, as I've mentioned, the defensive, and also if Sunderland get promoted from League One, I don't want to play Newcastle. So that brings an end to today's podcast with Nathan and Dan. Obviously, you can hear more of Dan on the Main Event podcast, which is all about Champions League fantasy football and Champions League football as a whole. And I'm sure you'll hear more of Nathan on that podcast as well, as he does get on the review shows alongside me. But if you can share the podcast on all social medias that you can, subscribe if you're on iTunes, follow it if you're on Spotify, and just generally share it. Follow me on all social medias. They will be in the description of this podcast. So follow me on there to find out what's happening, my opinions on different sporting events that's happened over the past week. And goodbye. Thanks for listening.